Your ideas help move this country. You are the American Innovator.
Hi everyone, we left the United States in mid-October 2012 on our trip to Africa. But before we got there, we had to stop in Dubai, and we spent 2 or 3 days there, and we had just a fantastic time. We made a great video on that as well. Flew about 9 hours down to Johannesburg, arrived just about sunset, when we got picked up by our driver from &Beyond and whisked to our hotel. Well, we had a great time just learning about South Africa because none of us had ever been there before. And the next day we woke up very early in the morning, 4 o'clock, and flew to Richards Bay. From there we were picked up by another great driver, and we drove a couple hours up the coast to the Phinda Forest Lodge, of course munching on wonderful dried mango the whole way. And as we started to drive along in the interior of Africa, we began to see life in Africa with cows running around right on the road, right on the side of the road. It was really pretty cool, pretty organic, pretty natural. And then we came across this village where they were having a big celebration because it was payday, and everybody was out selling their wares and cooking, and it's just a lot of fun. But then we hit the dirt roads, and boy, did we hit the dirt roads, just more and more dirt roads, because we had to drive a long way into the interior to get to the Phinda Forest Lodge. I got to tell you, when I first got there, I thought, oh man, I want my money back. Everything was dirt. There was nothing telling us that there was going to be any luxury to this vacation, but as Eunice brought us up to a reception area, we were blown away.
So I always like it when I come to a lodge and it says lions, leopards, elephants, and buffaloes are found in Phinda Private Game Reserve, and then venomous snakes and scorpions. Oh, that's all good, except no responsibility whatsoever for injury or death. We're going to make it here.
So as we walked along, more trails, Eunice showed us our room. And man, did she show us our room. It was unbelievable. Right in the middle of the forest. There were no roads. There was nothing. They built this entire bungalow by hand, carrying everything in. They didn't cut down any trees. It was really something. And as Leanne went into the bathroom, we realized, wow, this was not 5-star. This was like 6, 7-star luxury, and it was off the charts. And we began to enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. I set up this time-lapse camera just to show the ever-changing forest, and then we went over to lunch, and boy, the food was amazing, and the service was incredible, and the people were so friendly, and we loved, even the monkeys came around to eat. It was great. And Cindy actually put some hot sauce on the bread, and the monkey came and got it, but it didn't care. It just loved it just the same. Another time-lapse film, and then we saw this praying mantis, and yes, I had to take a little nap because I got tired.
So the one thing you got to know about Africa is you got to get up really early in the morning because that's when all the animals are out. So we get our wake-up call at 5 o'clock, 5:30, get coffee and cookies, and then we're off to the truck, and they're all waiting for us. You ready to go, you guys? Yeah. A little more enthusiasm, come on! Bit of history on Phinda. Phinda started back in 1991, and this all used to be cattle, cotton, hunting, and pineapple farms. And all these farms were joined together, and fences were dropped, and the land slowly started being rejuvenated back to its former glory. And the word Phinda actually means the return in the local language Zulu, and that's been the goal from the onset, is to return animals back to the area to live and roam freely as they once did. I mean, obviously within reasons, because we do have to have boundary fences because of the communities outside. And recently that concept of the return has come to mean more than just the return of the animals. It's come to mean the return of the land back to those communities, and so much so that they're actually our landlords. So back in, I think it was 2005, land redistribution and land claims have always been a very contentious issue in South Africa. But we were able to settle a groundbreaking claim with our communities that we get along so well with outside. And we sold the land to them through the government, and in return they've leased it back to us. So we've got a long lease with them. We pay them a monthly rental fee, which goes into community trust, which they've asked us to sit on the board of and help manage. So it's this big, I mean, all of this fits into our model of caring for the land, caring for the wildlife, and caring for the people. I mean, if you just look around and think that all of this used to be farmland, you can see the benefits that caring of the land has had on this whole area. So as we all here for the next 3 days, as we drive around, take it all in. We'll drive through different habitats, we'll see different animals. So we'll look for cheetah. There's a cheetah with 3 cubs at the moment that they've been getting some good sightings of. And Phinda is known for its good cheetah viewing. So not to raise any expectations or anything, but we're going to look for cheetah, as well as rhino, elephants, buffalo, all the big 5, black rhino, and then places like this, the sand forest is so good for birding. So if I see any special birds, we'll stop and point them out, and then as we go along, if there's anything else you want to do, you want to get out, walk. I know you guys went on a walk this afternoon, but we've got plenty of time the next few days if you want to go walking, anything like that. Just chat to me.
Well, since you're asking for requests, our movie producer would like a bull elephant chasing the sheep in the back.
That would be good.
We'll see what we can do.
Okay, I'm ready.
What
man.
about a whole herd?
Yeah, that works as well. You know, I'm easy.
And a charging line, we'll get out on foot maybe.
Yeah, I'll ride him. I mean, it will be no problem.
I'll take the camera.
It doesn't work too well, so we can't really tell. Fast enough. Okay, great.
Do you have a gun too?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm feeling really good about that.
So James had given us our briefing, and we were on our way for our first day into the Phinda Forest. You know, when you go on safari, you don't really know what to expect. You can kind of imagine what it's going to be like. But we were a little surprised. Here we were on our first day. We hadn't been out for more than an hour. James had given us our briefing, and they had spotted the cheetahs out in the middle of this huge field. I couldn't see them, but James was able to see them, and with binoculars, the other people were able to see them. And that was cool in and of itself. But then James said, well, let's drive up and take a look. So we drove across this huge field, and there were the cheetahs with 3. There was one cheetah mother with 3 babies just laying there, and we drove right up to it. It was really very amazing, just kind of giving you a perspective how close we were, and they really didn't care. They're not intimidated by the truck. The truck, I guess, is a friendly to them, is what we learned on being on safari for so long. But the cheetahs just were chilling, and the babies were playing, and the mom was rolling around, and it was just a pretty special time. So we sat there for literally at least an hour just watching them. It was just fascinating seeing them in their own habitat. And then after about 30 or 40 minutes, the mom decides, hey, let's move to another termite hill. And they walked right in front of the truck, and the babies all followed behind. And before long, they were sitting on a new termite mound. And then this guy says, hey, I think I'm going to go check out the truck. So this beautiful animal walks right up next to the vehicle. And we're just saying, this can't be happening, that we could be this close to a wild cheetah and her cubs.
Very ambitious.
So I had 2 favorite things to do when I was on safari. One is just to stop the truck and just watch for 30, 40 minutes, an hour. It didn't even matter. It was just fascinating to sit there and observe them. And then the second thing I love to do is actually to walk in the forest with James, which we do a little bit later on. We just had a great time just sitting back and enjoying this cheetah with her cubs, as she didn't seem to be intimidated at all by us, and we were enjoying every second of it. And to think that later on, up at elephant camp, I actually got to touch and be with the cheetah, a 150-pound animal, which you'll see later in some of the other videos. And you'd never dream you'd want to get out and touch this animal. It looks beautiful, but it's a wild animal. But up in elephant camp, there was an animal named Sylvester that was only at 2 days old. They were able to nurse him back because the mother and brothers and sisters were killed. And they kept the cheetah and raised it up, and it's pretty docile. And I got to spend some time with Sylvester. So just imagine walking up to a cat like this and being able to pet it and just interact with it. And actually we went out into the bush in the woods, and you'll see that video a little later on. But I would have never dreamed that I would be able to do that. And that just happened about a week and a half after this event where we saw these cheetahs in the wild and in their habitat. So the mother's on the move again. And notice how close the mother is? That's Gordon's head right there, right in front of the film. And before long, we're on our way again, and we're just enjoying the Phinda Forest and seeing all kinds of animals everywhere we go. Just having a wonderful time, and saw a giraffe. And I forgot to tell you, Cindy's a comic. You're going to see Cindy right now at her best.
You have got a lot to worry about, James. You got to worry about all the wild animals, including us.
Sometimes wild animals are a lot easier to deal with.
Okay, you guys, that was definitely a B-roll from B Actors. We want to hype it up a little bit more, okay?
James, you got a lot to worry about. You got to worry about showing us wild animals, and plus you got to keep us entertained with seeing wild animals.
the camera is
I have no idea. Well, then how good is it? How spontaneous it is if I'm talking to the camera?
I can't work under these conditions.
I need a bigger dressing room.
Not getting paid enough.
I'm calling my union rep.
The camera is here, lady.
2 takes is all you get. Listen, if I'm looking right at the camera, how is that? How is she talking to him? No, yeah, I'm supposed to
Method acting. Method acting.
Don't turn your head completely, at least. Give me a side shot. You were looking right at him.
Just turn this thing up. Let's go to another moment. This reenacting is not so easy. I'm not an actor. I'm a model. I'm not an actor.
Cindy Crawford, yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't act. She models.
So after Cindy's acting routine, the next thing you know, here are the lions. It's just one thing after another, a whole pride of lions, again, up on a termite hill or up on a high spot. And we just sat there again for hours just taking this in. It was just, again, so unbelievable. And when we first saw this pride of lions, it was just about evening. This is the second day we saw them. And the male actually was mating. I mean, they say they rarely ever see this, but here we're getting to see all the cubs and the whole pride just play and be together and be lazy, and it was fascinating. Okay, well, be prepared. You're going to see what very few people ever see. James said he hasn't seen this but once or twice. So here is the female. She's sitting there. She's just huge. I mean, she's right by the truck, and then the male is starting to come around. And watch what happens next. This male is just awesome. There's a little scratching. Got the whole pride just kind of laying in the grass. And it starts to get a little darker because we're sitting there for quite a while. And then look at this. Right in front of us. Look at the vehicle. Sorry about the bad camera work. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
That's what she said.
Just like that, it was over with. Right in front of us, right next to the vehicle. Could you imagine? These animals at any time just come take us out, and here we are witnessing this that very few people ever get to see. Well, before long, after the lions, we were on to the rhinos the next day. And this was incredible. A baby rhino, look at this, with the mother going right down the middle of the road where we were driving. And we just stopped and took it all in. And it's very interesting. When rhinos get defensive, they turn end to end. They butt up against each other, one facing one direction, one facing the other way. And they did that. You know, it's really hard to imagine just how close we were to those lions. And it was a little unnerving. And, you know, James had a gun, but he never had to pull it out or anything. And I said, you know, James, you know how to shoot that gun? And he said, oh, absolutely, I have to train all the time. And he said, I actually just had to qualify this morning in between lunch. And I said, I'd love to go out and shoot if that's possible. And he arranged the whole thing, and we went out and we got to shoot the gun, and I actually got to see what it takes to qualify to be a ranger. You have to be very good. In under 5 seconds, you have to let off 3 shots, dead ringers right in the center, in case a charging water bull, which is really one of the most dangerous animals, were to come at you. James never has to use his gun again, but they are incredibly well trained. And James was so gracious to take us out to the shooting range.
Yeah, and then if you just stay behind me
I will.
all the time. Okay, no pressure now. And then I'll just yell the instructions that I would usually in that scenario. Okay, ready.
Buffalo.
Stop, stand still! Stay behind me, I need to put in the killing shot. Wow. There we go, I need to check this animal's dead. Okay, animal's dead. Just turn around and go back.
That was impressive. That was impressive. And in the killing zone. Wow.
So think about that.
With us watching it.
James is nice enough to take us out and be under the pressure himself to show us that he's capable of defending us in case something happens. And then he allows me to run through the whole cycle so I can experience how well prepared these guys are. Well, needless to say, I was nowhere near the caliber of James, but I ran through the cycle very slow compared to him. Did okay on the targets. I hit the targets, not perfectly like James did. James hit them right on. But at least I now know that I have the confidence to be able to shoot the gun in case something happened to James. But of course, nothing ever did. And we just had a fantastic safari the entire time in South Africa. And then Leanne even got to shoot the gun. And this is a huge gun.
This is nice job.
Oh, that scared me.
Nice job, man.
Well, we were back on the road again after our target practice, and this Nyala was just right up by the vehicle. And I think probably the coolest thing is James knows so much about everything. He is like an encyclopedia. He's been doing this for a couple of years now, and we just enjoyed listening to all the different things we could learn about the wild. Check out this plant. This is amazing, like a Venus flytrap. You just brush your hand across it, and it closes, and just so interesting.
James is serious about teaching us about the ecosystem. So go ahead, James.
Okay, well, what we got here, this is called the foam nest frog. And it's a truly fascinating little creature. This female frog, during the winter months, will stay up in these trees. And as the rains come, she'll come up onto these branches. And using her hind feet, she'll whip up secretions from her skin, make it into this foam that you see here. And that foam hardens. And inside the foam, she will lay lots and lots of eggs, making way for male frogs to come. Many male frogs will come and fertilize those eggs. And after a few days, those eggs will hatch into tadpoles. And those little tadpoles will take about 5 days to slowly wriggle through that foam, eventually dropping out from the foam into the water below to carry on their life cycle and turn into frogs.
And if the pond dries up, she's in trouble, right?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at this one over here, she's not taking any chances. She's put her nest very close to the water, ensuring that her little tadpoles make it.
Neck stork.
You know, the weather was mixed when we were in Africa. Sometimes it was rainy and wet, and we saw all kinds of great birds, and other times it was kind of sunny. And now we came across these hippos in this little pond, and hippos always stand on the bottom, and they're actually one of the most dangerous animals out on safari, because if you get near them and you threaten them a little bit, they will definitely charge you, and they can outrun a human. And that is something that most people just can't imagine. And before long, we were off on our walk through the Phinda Forest, and James got ready to blow his gun.
Flick like that.
Always prepared.
And I'll see exactly what the wind's doing, so we know if we're up or downwind of animals and whether we need to be more alert or...
Unbelievable.
What is it?
It's just one of my old socks that I've cut, and I've put some baking flour inside, and it's a very effective little wind.
Now that's a lean windsock.
And then we'll come back onto the road in a while when it gets a bit too thick in there, and then we'll walk along the road. It's in very wet.
Yeah, unless you remember you've got the boots, we do not.
Yeah, well, that's why on the road it's a big river.
Okay,
What kind of shoes do you have, Cindy? Are you really prepared? Are you really prepared here today?
Yes, I am prepared. They're waterproof. I can go right through water with
You look
these.
like you're a New York City slicker.
Stop it.
We're gonna, as we set off, we're gonna keep our voices down, walk quietly, just so we can take in all the sounds around us and hear what is out there. Keep alert if there's anything we need to know. Also ask that you stay behind me and the rifle at all times. We're going to walk single file when we're walking through the forest here. When we come back onto the road, then we can walk two abreast. That's fine. Please obey all my instructions without hesitations at all times.
You got the gun.
Oh my. Yeah, you got the stuff.
And then should we surprise an animal along the way, whatever you do, don't run. Just look at me and I'll tell you exactly what to do. I might use a few hand signals, the most important being preceded by a click and just a hand out to the side. It means just freeze, stop whatever you're doing and look at me and I'll tell you what to do. But let's just go out there, take nice...
Okay, I thought this was a stroll. I'm a little nervous.
No,
There's no strolling.
it's going to be a very nice
I
stroll.
thought we were
We'll
just
just
walking
take
down
you
the
in.
path.
Hey, Cindy, we're not in New Jersey, we're in Africa.
Alright, okay, so let's keep our voices down and we'll head out into here.
So again, this is my favorite time, just to get out and walk around and hear all the sounds. It's just, the forest is so rich and alive. Everywhere you look, there's something. These are some water bucks. And that guy makes a nasty sound. Again, James is just pointing out everything as we walk along. And you don't think it's possible just to walk right out into the jungle, but we got to do quite a bit of it. And this, again, was one of those special times. And James, so well trained again, able to track the animals and tell exactly where they are and where they've been and where they're going.
Termites.
So all the termites in the reserve, and weighed them, and all the animals.
All the animals. So the complete mass of all the termites is heavier than all the animals on the reserve. That's how many termites. I mean, just look through this forest. This is what keeps this forest alive, is these termites.
Up on the top of the pile, dump the rock, and then back in the hole and get some more.
So about an hour later, we were back at our lodge and had a very special time. Really nice, pleasant weather. A little wet, but it was just, the sun was just starting to break out. And James did a great job. And before long, we were out. So essentially what happened was, we would leave every morning about 5:30 in the morning on our morning safari. And then we'd come back and have breakfast. And then we would have lunch. And then we would go out on an afternoon safari, leaving around 3 or 4 o'clock, and we'd stay out till 8 o'clock. We were staying out at night. And this is in the evening more, when we first saw the lions. And this is one of the female ones, and she was just huge. And you can see all the pride right there in the tall grass. And then the mother's sitting out here. And then it started to rain really, really hard, and they all started to take shelter, and this one was not very happy. Look at the size of the teeth this guy has. And so they're all kind of getting under the bush to take shelter from the rain. And I got to tell you, when I look back on it, the rain really didn't bother me, because it was just so fascinating being out there and watching the animals in their element. Now, this was fascinating. There was a leopard sighting, and so we started to look for it. And that's kind of the cool thing you can do in Phinda, is you can actually drive right into the woods and kind of look for the animals. And you know, they're very, very careful. They won't go in there if it's very wet, because it would damage the soil. But we just went in there looking for the leopard. We never actually found the leopard this time, but later on we do, and you're going to see some great leopard shots. And this is a wild boar hole, and we stuck the camera right down in it. And when we drove by one of them, the wild boars ran out. It was such a trip. You're going to see that here in just a minute. But yeah, there they are right there. So they built their burrow right next to the road. And you see 3 of them came out. And I was very excited, because it was pretty cool seeing this. And there's all kinds of beautiful flora and fauna everywhere you go, and interesting plants. And I just stopped and videotaped and took lots of pictures. If you saw the first video I did on This is Africa, you saw a lot of the really cool pictures that we got. And then these giraffes just passing across the road right in front of us. And then basically you just drive along, you see the animals, and just stop and you just watch and look at this incredible sky. And this was more towards the evening. And one of the other things I loved about the safari was, we would set up this little table, James and Dan would, and we would have our coffee and Amarillo and little cookies, and they were just great hosts. And you could have a drink, you could have anything you want. And we just pull this out in the middle of the forest, and just enjoy this. And Dan was something. So Dan is the tracker.
Dan, you ain't so bad either.
And he sits up in the front of the vehicle, up in that seat up there, and he's always scouting, looking around for animals. And now we're going on a night safari, and we just find all kinds of cool and interesting things everywhere we go. And Dan can find the smallest things you can't even imagine. And then we had a big rain the night before, and we're just out there. And we had a great time with Amanda. She was a great sport from South Africa. And we saw these great zebras. And look at this one's got a wound on the back of his leg, if you see that. He was in some kind of a fight. So we were actually on the way towards the airport when we saw this giraffe with her baby. And this baby was, a couple weeks old. The umbilical cord is still attached. And just very interested in what we were doing. And Gordon and Cindy, they're a crack up.
James,
good sport.
Now tell us about what happens with the water buffaloes when they get old.
Well, when the males, when they pass their reproductive peak, they leave the herd and they go off on their own. The females don't want them anymore. They become grumpy old men hanging around by themselves and can be very temperamental. If you come across them on foot, they're one of the most dangerous animals in Africa because of the fact they don't have the safety of the herd, and they've been rendered useless.
Nah, they're not getting it anymore, James.
James, shit about how.
I can never say enough about the food at and Beyond and the staff. Everybody was just so kind, and the quality of everything we did was at the highest level. And they're just a fun group of people. So eating was almost as much fun as being out on safari. And here we have a big thunderstorm rolling in, and we were going to look for the lions again, and we came across the monkeys, and I'm messing around. I set up the camera in one of our little evening.
What are they called again?
Life is so funny. So here's some great birds that are making these nests. That have
Yellow weavers?
tunnels in them. Yellow weavers.
Some village weavers there. These ones you're looking at here, and there are also some spectacle weavers.
So we stopped on the side of the road because there's a cool little animal over there, and we're just enjoying this beautiful canopy and all the beautiful sounds. And I asked James, has Dan ever been charged before outside of that lion experience they had the other day? He said, oh, all the time, chased up trees by black rhinos. And he said, do you see his weapon in the front? I go, where's his weapon? Come on, Dan, show me your weapon. This is his weapon. He's been charged by elephants, lions, rhinos, and it's a stick. They call it a Zulu. What do you call it, a Zulu gun? Or a Zulu rifle. There you go. This is one brave man. So we have a problem.
So what do you think we're going to do?
An opportunity. It's an opportunity.
I think we have a little bit of a challenge ahead of us.
Just a little bit of a challenge.
Now, when James got us
Just
into this,
another
I was thinking
day
to
in
myself,
Africa.
we are screwed. There is no way we're going to get out of this. Someone's got to come pull us out. But again, James in the training went and got branches and started putting them underneath the wheel. And I said, James, come on, be real. This mud is so deep. There's no way you're going to get out. But there's a lot of pride here. He was not going to be pulled out. And so he went ahead and continued to put the branches in. But the whole time I was naysaying it, completely saying, James, you got to be kidding, man. I've been four-wheeling my whole life. There's no way you're going to get out. And he got out.
Here comes my ride.
James is pretty good.
They left without me. Bert.
We're just looking at some black-headed heron here, and I was mentioning about there's another heron called the green-backed heron, and they're very clever birds. They're the real fishermen, and they will sit on a little log or branch overhanging the water, and they'll catch a fly, and they'll throw the fly into the water, waiting for the fish to come up and catch the fly, so that then they can get the fish. And if they don't have a fly to use, they'll pluck out one of their feathers, using that as bait, and toss it into the water and wait for the fish to come.
The original fly fisherman.
The original fly fisherman, yeah, the green-backed heron.
You know, we have to say a special thanks to Max. She was just the sweetest lady, and she prepared our breakfasts. And then Eunice was just, again, a great hostess, and she was so special to us. And all of the wait staff, were just great, and the homemade jams and the food, and wow, it was so special. And we made such great friends with Amanda and her husband, and we just had a super time.
We will show you around.
You know, when I look back on the video, it really did rain quite a bit, but it didn't faze us at all. We still had a great time. It was just coming out of their winter, spring, going into summer, and we've got Dan to hold the eye pole just to give a perspective of the tracker seat as we're going along. And of course, nothing like our great coffee breaks. We found this really cool turtle. Stopped and gave a look to him, and whoa. And then on the way to the airport, this was really, really cool. This is a water monitor. And he was on the runway. And James had to clear the runway. That was part of his job so the plane could take off. And this guy was in the middle of the runway. So James got the eye pole and kind of chased after him a little bit. We got some pretty cool footage here. This guy takes off running. He can whip you with this tail. That tail is really dangerous, actually. But James had quite a long eye pole, you know, about 50 inches there. So he was ways away from it in reality. But he got right up on it and got some great footage. I told James, I want to get right on the tail so I can really see it really well. Look at him. Look at him come around here.
Oh my, that is great footage, James. You nailed it.
James is getting the great footage here. This guy's going to take off running here.
I put the camera right at the tail, so it looks like you're riding him.
There we go. Oh, too cool, eh? Only with the eye pole.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in trouble now. Wow, James! You're the man, James! Look at him!
So it was time to say goodbye to Phinda Forest, and we got on a small little 414 Cessna. This is just a little dinky 2-seater or 6-seater plane, 8-seater total with the pilots, and we got on. And we got some great footage taken off and going out over the Phinda Forest. The next stop is in Gala. And boy, you're going to see some outrageous footage in the next This is Africa series. And a special thanks to James for doing a great job of being our ranger and finding all kinds of great animals, and Dan for being our tracker and beyond at Phinda Forest Lodge.
The American Innovator has been brought to you by FastCap. To hear more, just go to theamericaninnovator.com.